Morning, everybody. This is Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center with the Thursday morning update on Tropical Storm Nicole. The center of Nicole is making its way across the Florida Peninsula. It's about 30 miles to the northeast of Tampa right now. You can see here on the radar imagery a large area of rain showers and heavy rain covering much of the central and northern portions of the Florida Peninsula, working into the Florida Panhandle, southeast Georgia, with heavy rain, with rain showers and rain bands moving on up into coastal portions of the Carolinas. I also have a few rotating cells that could produce tornadoes that are starting to form here out over the Atlantic waters. We have a tornado watch in effect for portions of extreme northeast Florida and coastal southeast Georgia, so that's something to be aware of this afternoon. Right now, Nicole has maximum sustained winds of around 50 miles per hour, but it still has that big, broad wind field, as you can see here on our next graphic. The orange area shows the approximate location of the tropical storm force winds that extend outward almost 400 miles away from the center, especially to the north. So we still have tropical storm conditions occurring across much of the Florida East Coast. We have that tropical storm warning from Sebastian Inlet northward all the way to South Santee River, South Carolina. So coastal, central and northern east coast of Florida, coastal Georgia, much of coastal South Carolina. You can see tropical storm conditions through today and into tonight. We also have tropical storm conditions on the Gulf Coast of Florida from the south of the Tampa Bay region up through the Big Bend and into the Florida Panhandle. And so we have tropical storm warnings in effect for that region as well. We are expecting the center of Nicole to move back out over the extreme northeastern Gulf of Mexico later this afternoon, and then move inland across the Florida Panhandle tonight, and then accelerate northeastward across Georgia and into the southern Appalachians during the day on Friday, where it will eventually merge with an approaching cold front and sort of lose definition. But the rainfall impacts are going to continue northward, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. I do want to hit on the storm surge. This is still an ongoing concern along both the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. We still have a storm surge warning in effect from Sebastian Inlet all the way up to Altamaha Sound. We could see 3 to 5 feet of inundation above ground level. We've seen a lot of pictures of damaging wave action, beach erosion, significant coastal flooding in this region through multiple high tide cycles beginning yesterday, continuing through the night and into this morning. That's going to continue during the day today. That includes portions of the St. Johns River inland upstream from Jacksonville, where we're could again see inundation of 3 to 5 feet above ground level. North of Altamaha Sound, places like Savannah and Charleston could see 2 to 4 feet of inundation, with a possible 1 to 2 feet of inundation up into the coastal southern North Carolina coast. Now, on the Gulf Coast, we also have a storm surge warning in effect from Anclote River to Ocklawaha River. And as the center of Nicole moves back out over the Gulf, that westerly and southwesterly wind is going to pile water into this Big Bend region of Florida, which is very sensitive to storm surge. And we could see inundation there of 3 to 5 feet above ground level. So folks in those areas, just because Nicole's mostly been focused on the east coast of Florida, don't let your guard down. We could see some life-threatening inundation from storm surge here along the Gulf Coast. So be ready to take action and move to higher ground if water begins to move into your area. Now, the other big effect from Nicole is going to be the rainfall. We could see the heaviest rainfall today is going to be focused in central and northern Florida, the Florida Panhandle, southern Georgia, coastal South Carolina, where we could see widespread amounts of 2 to 3 inches. We could see storm total amounts in parts of the Florida Peninsula as high as 8 inches. And this rainfall, the greatest chance of flash flooding today is going to be from central Florida up through places like Jacksonville, Savannah, southern Georgia, up into the Charleston, South Carolina area. Now, as Nicole moves northward overnight tonight and into Friday and Saturday, and that moisture is pulled up along the approaching cold front, we're going to see a widespread heavy rainfall event all the way from the southern Appalachians up through the mid-Atlantic states and into portions of the interior Northeast and the Ohio Valley. We could see rainfall amounts as high as 6 inches in portions of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the moisture is going to be pushed up against the higher terrain here, especially in portions of western North Carolina and central and western Virginia. And that is again going to lead to a widespread risk of scattered flash flooding across western North Carolina, western Virginia, much of West Virginia, and up into the Ohio Valley, much of Pennsylvania, and interior portions of New York State. So don't let your guard down. Be on the alert for potential flash flooding through today, into tonight, and into tomorrow, all the way up through portions of the East Coast. I do want to talk about the tornado potential. I briefly mentioned there's a tornado watch in effect right now for portions of northeast Florida and coastal Georgia. That risk of tornadoes today extends up through tomorrow morning into portions of coastal South Carolina, southeast North Carolina, and then from Friday into Saturday morning is more focused in eastern portions of North Carolina and coastal and central and eastern, southeastern Virginia, Hampton Roads, southern portions of the Delmarva Peninsula. So tornadoes associated with tropical storms often form very quickly. There's not necessarily a lot of lead time or notice So be on the alert, especially if you're under a tornado watch, to take action very quickly if a tornado warning is issued for your area, because it could develop very fast. I do want to touch on the inland wind aspects of this storm. We talked about the widespread wind field. There are tropical storm warnings in effect for much of the central and northern Florida peninsula, southern Georgia, coastal South Carolina, and coastal Georgia, and parts of the Florida Panhandle. We're seeing reports from where Nicole's core came on shore of pretty significant power outages in portions of east central Florida. We could certainly see scattered power outages elsewhere in the state. And I do want to touch on generator safety. We lose a lot of people after tropical storms and hurricanes from improper generator use. Please know and use your generator safely. Follow the instructions. Never operate a generator inside your home or garage or any other enclosed space where people are. It needs to be properly vented. We can lose a lot of people after storms in these types of accidents. So please stay safe and be in your safe place today, especially in those areas under watches and under warnings in the Florida Peninsula, and be on the lookout for that flash flooding moving on up the East Coast, potentially through tomorrow and into early Saturday. So this is Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center with the latest on Tropical Storm Nicole. Stay tuned for more updates